people fail to recognize, or what mainstream religion refuses to recognize, or is too ignorant to recognize, because big mainstream religion still claims to acknowledge Jesus Christ, but yet big preachers still defend, and even they're still mainstreaming the glorifying and justifying the old ways that were supposed to be long dead after Jesus Christ had his time, so to speak. They're glorifying what I call the prehistoric sacrificial dogma that is supposed to have been long dead and discarded. And a lot of mainstream preachers still, and people, some are even pretty good people, that if you want to believe in Jesus Christ and believe in God, to separate yourself from the rest of the world and don't take part in certain kind of things that people were going on now. I mean, that's okay, but there was a lot of good people out there that well, there was that old practice that was called the scapegoat, where they'd run a goat off the cliff, people in their ignorance or their desperation thought that they can actually transfer their sins onto a goat or an animal and run it off of a cliff. And then people thinking that they actually thought that they can really transfer their sins onto an animal, or that blood of some other animal is going to atone for your sins. That was never true. It was all a big lie. I mean, people had to raise animals to eat, farming and all that, and they grew grain or what have you. Oh, then people didn't even have farms, if you will. They didn't have cattle. Oh, and they had to go and take an animal to sacrifice it. Oh, and you didn't own cattle or anything. You weren't a cattle owner. You had to have a dove, and you had to buy it. What the hell did people think it meant in that Bible when Jesus Christ threw out those money changers? He was a threat to the animal sacrifice industry. That's why they wanted to kill him before that. And it's not about evangelizing. People don't realize, even mainstream religion, even the mainstream religion that still on TV you hear once in a while that they regard that Abraham hearing a disembodied voice to tell him to kill his son, but of course it was never to happen. An animal gets caught in the weeds. Oh, and it's a big revelation, a big test. In this day and age, if you hear disembodied voices that way to tell you to do such thing, they kind of put you away. But people glorify that. That's where they go wrong. And what people fail to recognize is that that was a big racket. The sacrificial industry. It was an industry. They sold doves. Well, in the Bible, they check the animal. You were back in that day, take an animal over their sacrifice. It said right in that Bible, they were invalidated. Oh, we found a flaw. So you got to buy one of ours. Buy one. You got to buy it. And oh yeah, now imagine, it doesn't say in the Bible, but it says, oh, you brought this animal all the way here. You can go and take it home. But how about we take it off of your hands, and then you can buy one of ours. And you can picture this happen. You fucking know well. I shouldn't say it that way, because there's a lot of there's a lot of other people look at me that swear a little bit, and I had friends, both black and white, that have some knowledge of things that among each other we swear anyway. But it was a big racket. Yeah, they would say, oh yeah, we'll take this animal off your hands. It's invalid. And then the next person that comes along, they're selling it to them. They probably take their animal and say, oh, this is flawed. You can't bring it into the altar. And then, oh, we'll sell you this one. That's probably the one that you get it. And, well, before these inquisitions, right, that you hear about, a lot of the young kids that, when they were mainstreaming atheism back in the earlier days of YouTube, the atheists and the Christian crowd fighting with each other, the drama with the amazing atheist and the that guy that wasn't wrapped too tight, fake Sagan there, and all of them. Yeah, that was, I remember those days. That's like in the back of my head, but it was a big racket. And to continue this on, okay, before all those inquisitions and all the stuff people were doing in the name of Christ, which we all know was wrong. Before that, Christianity started to grow. Well, Christianity became a threat to the animal sacrifice industry because all these other people that didn't convert to Christianity yet, but some were converting. Not just the people that wanted Jesus dead back in them days. Everybody was sacrificing animals, so there was people that didn't want nobody to convert to Christianity because all of them people all those groups were sacrificing to something, every nationality, and they were making lots of money. They didn't want that. But yeah, of course, all those other things we know did happen. The historic correctness, you know what I mean, and you got all your stuff about Constantine and all that. The Roman Catholic Church, and you had the Catholics and the different people, different. You had the different wars that were going on in the medieval times up until it. I saw this YouTube video. I saw the whole video too, called "The Road to Armageddon." And there was this professor that actually, I had a clip of it somewhere. I should put it back on there if I didn't take it off, because due to copyright concerns, I'll leave something on there for a while, and if it don't get flagged, I'll take it down. But yeah, he said some pretty interesting things on there about like the Inquisitions, and said then there was he was talking about the Age of Enlightenment, where people wanted to get away from even having a soul. They didn't want to be threatened with hell and all that, what have you. And to talk about the dogma of materialism and all that stuff. Yeah, remember his exact words he said about the Inquisitions. I'll put a clip of that in this video, really, but yeah, if you wanted to catch that video, and even if you don't watch it all the way through, maybe take your slider and then you know how you can go to the beginning end and listen to those quotes or whatever. Say if you're not really holier than thou, or you're not this or that, get some really cool insight there. But Jesus Christ wasn't the guy that was your rebellion, whom was being forced down your throat, and you had to rebel against your mother and father, who were the Bible thumpers, but yet screamed and swear and chain smoke in your house. There was more to that. Yeah, he actually was a threat to people that were making lots of money at the time. And yet there are people in your mainstream religion now that are still glorifying the very stuff that he did away with. They're glorifying it and mainstream it like it was something supposed to be done. And some of these people were preaching that different things about Cain and Abel, saying that Cain yeah, there were a couple of different things I seen on one preacher one day. There was a preacher that how they actually said, well, Cain was downcast because I guess he didn't have in his heart obedience in his heart, and wondering why everything was going bad for him, and Abel was really faithful. So Cain's sacrifice, if you will, was not acknowledged by God or whatever, and Abel was doing everything right. There are some people that were preaching that Cain's sacrifice, it was supposed to be a blood offering, and Abel did everything right. It was supposed to be animal sacrifice, blood off. There was people that actually preached that. And yeah, there are still people that think that the uh, yeah, that prehistoric sacrificial dogma was the right thing to do. It never really was. It got out of hand. They turned it into a racket. Right after the fall, everything got corrupt. The human body was corrupt. You know, we all get diseases now. Some of us are more athletic than others. Some of them get struck with cancer, this and that. And, lifespan started getting shorter. People used to live about 700 something years old or whatever. Enoch, seventh from Adam, uh, not the son of Cain, and Enoch, the actual one from your book of Hebrews 11:4 and Jude and the books of Enoch. And when Enoch was mentioned in the book called Jubilees, the little Genesis, where there was a lot more stuff mentioned in detail, he lived to be 365 years old, the same amount of days in our year. And then in that book of Enoch, he was said that the great age that was assigned to man for man's benefit, if you will. It almost gives you this idea that 365 days, the amount of years he lived, that we have like the days, how the sun comes up and goes down every time, and we got equinoxes. It was like the amount of days in our calendar and years was set by somebody or something, like an algorithm, if you will. Like it was an algorithm before we ever had computers or whatever. It was all set in no accident. That you can sort of entertain that thought if you wanted to, but the great age are 365 days in a year. And I'm not knocking the Jewish calendar because Jewish had their festivals and feasts, but what's wrong with our calendar? We had 365 days in a year, and the books of Enoch kind of has a whole chapter of dealing with when the sun sets different times, and all of a sudden you get an equinox and all of that. All kind of cultures had their calendars, and I don't see nothing wrong with our calendar of today. I mean, if you want to look at the book of Enoch and look at, we don't need all those other calendars. The calendar we have works perfectly fine, but because it measures when the sun comes up every morning, and when you have that, when it starts getting dark, different times, you got your equinox, and then every culture had their solstices and all that. But Enoch himself was indicating that you observe every single day when the sun sets and all that. There's a whole chapter in it if you want to dive into that, whatever belief you may have. But yeah, that's a little extra stuff that I read. I was a reader of the Key of Solomon. I know some of the old Hebrew alphabet from charts in the Key of Solomon, and some Latin prayers, if you will, that because it was interesting, because you have it memorized, and for a lot of different reasons and purposes. And that's about it.